The Carolina Hurricanes made some huge moves yesterday, but rather than them being free agent signings, they were on the trade market. The Hurricanes continue to show that they are all in on trying to win a Stanley Cup, and we'll talk about their big moves right now. Hey everybody, so the Carolina Hurricanes had themselves quite a day yesterday, making two major trades to try and gear up for another competitive season and a run at a Stanley Cup. And Carolina continues to show that they are all in on trying to win a cup with this group. And some major moves made yesterday in the trade market, and some spectacular moves, I think, for Carolina to, bring in big-time players without really having to give up a whole lot. And the way that Carolina is constructing their team right now was going to keep them in the contender conversation. This is a team that's lost in the second round of the playoffs the last 2 years. Think it's time, or they might be able to get over that hump and make that push. They're certainly putting a team together that should be capable of doing that. But let's take a look here at the major trades that Carolina made yesterday. So to kick things off, the Carolina Hurricanes acquired defenseman Brent Burns and forward Lane Peterson from the San Jose Sharks in exchange for Steven Lorentz, Eetu Makaniemi, and a 2023 third-round draft pick. So with the departure of Tony DeAngelo, Carolina needed a right-shot D-man. They needed a right-shot offensive D-man. And obviously, Brent Burns fits the bill for that. Now, I've certainly had my issues with Brent Burns over the past number of years and the way that he plays and his almost rover mentality of not actually being a defenseman and being more interested in putting up offensive numbers. But when you look at Carolina how their D is constructed, if you pair Brent Burns with a very good defensive defenseman, that takes a lot of the defensive pressure off of him. Say, like Jacob Slavin, for example. If you pair Brent Burns with Jacob Slavin, Slavin can handle the defensive load, which then makes Burns' rover mentality not as big of an issue as if you're trying to have Burns be your number one D-man. Because that's where my biggest issue with Brent Burns has been the fact that he hasn't actually played defense. But if you pair him with a guy that can handle the defensive load, like a Jacob Slavin, and allow Burns to use his offensive talents to put up points, then you could have a very effective pairing there. And one of those pairings that's like one guy focuses on the defensive side of things and the other guy focuses on the offensive side of things. I think that is a very good situation to put a player like Brent Burns in. And this is a big add to the blue line for the Carolina Hurricanes, getting a guy with the offensive firepower that Burns brings, and can still, even though he's in his 30s now, can still put up some major points. They also got him at a reduced cost because San Jose retained 34% of his salary. So they're getting Burns at a little over $5 million a year rather than the $8 million that San Jose was paying him. So they get Burns to play the right side to replace DeAngelo, and they get him at a reduced cost. They also get Lane Peterson, who's 24 years old. Depth forward at this point, can probably be their fourth-line center. We don't know exactly what they've got there as far as, maybe long-term, but he's a good depth guy to have added to that lineup now. And again, they really didn't give up a whole lot. Steven Lorentz was the only one that really played NHL games, and then they gave up a third-round pick and a spare goaltender from the minors. So, honestly, talk about a great trade here for Carolina, where they didn't really have to give up a whole lot, and they were able to land Brent Burns and a young forward. So, that was just step number one, because Carolina wasn't done. They also went out and absolutely cleaned out the Vegas Golden Knights. Now, Vegas had to make a major move because of their salary cap issues. They needed to dump some money, and we knew that a major piece was going to be going out from Vegas because they just can't afford to keep everybody. Well, it turns out that major piece is Max Pacioretty. and Carolina was able to land forward Max Pacioretty and young defenseman Dylan Coghlan for future considerations, which usually results in pretty much nothing, either like a late draft pick or a prospect that's never going to make the NHL. Like, that is literally giving up almost nothing to get a all-star level goal scorer and a young D-man. I mean, talk about highway robbery. In Vegas, I mean, their hands were tied. They had no position of leverage. They had to dump money because of the salary cap. But, I mean, an absolute steal here for the Carolina Hurricanes to land Pacioretty and Coghlan for basically nothing from the Vegas Golden Knights. And now they bring in at times can be elite goal scorer on the wing to add to this forward group. And just what a day for Carolina and what they were able to pull off with the Burns and Pacioretty moves and basically, again, giving up nothing. All total here, the Carolina Hurricanes added Brent Burns, Max Pacioretty, Lane Peterson, and Dylan Coghlan, and all they gave up was Steven Lawrence, a minor league goaltender, and a third-round pick. I mean, just absolute robbery on the trade market from the Hurricanes today, and some phenomenal moves that are really showing that Carolina is going all in on trying to win. Okay, so now I want to take a look at Carolina's cap-friendly page and kind of where they stand as a whole right now, because I think this is not all in necessarily, as in like they have to win this year or they're going to have to blow it up, but I think they're showing that they are going all in to be a contending team and have a legitimate shot at a Stanley Cup this coming season and for the foreseeable future. So let's take a look here. Carolina. Now, one thing to keep in mind here is the cap space. They're pushing it cap space-wise. They are right up against it. They have $4 million left right now, but they have 2 RFAs that they still potentially need to re-sign or trade or whatever they're going to decide to do. But let's take a look at this forward group here. Sebastian Aho, obviously number 1 center. Svechnikov locked up long-term. Now you add Pacioretty into the mix on the wing. Jordan Staal's veteran guy, final year of his contract coming up. Teravainen's still there, very important winger for them. Kotkaniemi, his new deal kicks in at $4.82 million per season. Long-term deal there for Kotkaniemi. He is going to be a key player this coming season for Carolina. We'll talk more about that. Jesper Fast has a year left on his deal. Jordan Martinook, he's got a couple years left, depth forward. Ondrej Kase, they're a free agent signing that they decided to bring in. Most of their work was done on the trade market, but Kase comes in as a free agent. Can be an effective depth player there. Seth Jarvis, obviously, he's going to get a big-time raise when his contract is up, but he's got 2 years left on his ELC. Lane Peterson comes in, very low-cost fourth-line center. Now, Marty Necas is a question right here because he's an RFA. Again, they don't have a lot of money to work with, only $4 million in cap space right now. So Marty Necas and what happens with him is going to be interesting here with him being an RFA. But overall, this forward group, now they did lose a little bit. Obviously, they lost Vincent Trocheck, who went to the New York Rangers, so there goes their second-line center. They also, Nino Niederreiter, still a free agent. He probably, I don't see any way financially that he could return to Carolina, given them only having $4 million in cap space and still have guys to sign. So they did lose a little bit out of that front group, but, Pacioretty is a, bigger, better player than both Trocheck or Niederreiter from a goal-scoring perspective. So that's a big get to get Pacioretty there. And then on the back end now, obviously they lost Tony DeAngelo, but they brought in Brent Burns, and now he's $5.28 million instead of the $8 million per year that he was with San Jose, and they add in Burns to that right side, who I think should play with Jacob Slavin. And now you've got Slavin and Burns, you've got Shea and Pesci, and then your depth guys, you've got Coughlin and Chatfield, and Ethan Bear, again, is another RFA. If they can re-sign Ethan Bear, he's a depth D-man for you. If not, he's a guy that they can probably move on from if they need to at this point and get it maybe a cheaper option as like a 7th defenseman or something like that. So there's still a little bit of work to be done here with Carolina, no doubt. Obviously, goaltenders still Anderson and Ronta. They've got those two as the tandem for one more year. And then Jake Gardiner. So Jake Gardiner reportedly has actually been cleared to play. So this is going to kind of make things interesting. I think there's at least one more trade to be made here for Carolina because I think they need to move Jake Gardiner's contract. I don't think they're going to be able to just stash him on LTIR anymore because he's been cleared to play after having hip and back surgeries, and he hasn't played in quite a while. But they're probably going to have to do something with this contract for Gardiner because they're not going to be able to just throw him on LTIR. There's one more player I want to talk about, and it's regard to the forward group. Because if I'm looking at this right now, Carolina's got a very talented forward group. But if there's one area that I think is a little thin, it's down the middle. With the departure of Vincent Trocheck, obviously Sebastian Aho is your number one center. But after that, they don't really have a true 2C. Jordan Staal, I think at this point in his career, is a third liner. Jesperi Kotkaniemi has not proven that he can be a top 6 forward yet. I mean, he was playing on the Carolina's 4th line last year. I wouldn't trust him to be the second line center. Lane Peterson at this point is a 4th liner. Marty Necas has primarily played the wing in the NHL. He can play center, but I don't think you just want to thrust him into the 2C role necessarily. I think if there's any area where this team I'm looking at and going, ooh, maybe they need something there, it's another guy down the middle. That's where I'm going to talk about who I think is the best prospect and most NHL-ready prospect that the Carolina Hurricanes have, and he could be a massive key to Carolina this season if he's able to make the jump to the NHL. And that is this man right here, Jack Drury. Jack Drury is a 22-year-old center still on his ELC, making less than $1 million per season, which is going to be crucial given the cap situation for Carolina right now. He's put up monster numbers in the AHL. I believe he had 62 points in the AHL last season. If Jack Drury on his ELC can make the jump to the NHL and play center in the middle 6 for the Hurricanes, that could be a game changer for Carolina if this guy can jump up and make that push, because this could be a low-cost option that can give them some better center depth and still can, really produce down the middle for them and kind of take some of that pressure off of Kotkaniemi, that pressure off of Marty Necas and guys like that, and really contribute to this team offensively the way that Seth Jarvis did when he first came up. Like, Seth Jarvis came up with Carolina and pretty much started producing right away. There wasn't a long adjustment period for Jarvis. Now, Jarvis is a winger, obviously, and Drury's a center. But if Drury can pull that off and make that NHL jump and be a productive center at the NHL level, that could be a game changer, a low-cost game changer for the Carolina Hurricanes. So if you're a Carolina Hurricanes fan, or if you're just interested in what the Hurricanes are doing and where they're at, throughout training camp in the preseason this year, I would be watching Jack Drury very, very closely, because with their current cap situation, I think he's got a very real shot to make the Hurricanes this year. And if he can do that and provide them some low-cost depth down the middle and some good offensive production, that could be huge for the Hurricanes in keeping themselves under the salary cap and being able to, still be a high level team in the NHL. So overall, looking at the Carolina Hurricanes, I think they are in a phenomenal spot right now. I think they had a phenomenal day yesterday, adding Burns and Pacioretty. and they're making big moves. And I still think there might be a move or two in the works with Carolina, because again, they're pretty tight up against it cap-wise. They still got a couple of RFAs that need contracts. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's at least one more deal. I also think they need to move the Jake Gardner contract. So I think Carolina's still got a couple of moves to be made the rest of this offseason. But this is a team that is absolutely all in to win right now and trying to put themselves in position to win a Stanley Cup. And I think they continue to do a very, very good job of that. So that's what I've got on Carolina and what they were able to do, in them showing that they are all in on being a cup contender again this season. Thank you guys so much for watching. And with that, please don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, follow on social media. All those links are down in the description. If you'd like to further support the channel, the links to our merchandise store, membership, and donations are down in the description as well. Keep spreading the word about this channel. Let's keep this thing growing. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll talk to you all soon.